Okay. All right. So, a little bit about you. You are 50, but I want to talk a little bit about how you got there. So, can you tell me a little bit about your family?
Sure. I'm Puerto Rican, and unfortunately, my parents were very young, and my bio father apparently, allegedly, passed away shortly after I was born, and my bio mother was unable to appropriately take care of me. So I was removed from her care and put in foster homes, and I was in about 4 or 5 foster homes before my current family had apparently applied for foster homes to create a foster home. And I was considered an emergency placement. And since they had just filed, I was placed in their home.
Okay. And tell me about, the family that you were placed in. So you were coming from foster care. You have siblings. Tell me about your parents.
I had 4 brothers and 3 sisters. One has passed away since, so now I have 3 and 3. It was actually interesting since I didn't speak English, but luckily there was a my older sister spoke Spanish, so we were able to communicate until I was able to, understanding of English language so that I can communicate with the rest of the family. But she was the bridge until that occurred. They also employed or used the services of someone at the school who was able to help me learn English.
How old were you when you kind of, grasped English well enough to really communicate well?
Since I was young when I started, I was probably, in the adolescence. I would say I remember the classes up until I think 4th or 5th grade. So I would say 5th grade, maybe, that I had a
Okay.
pretty fluency. I had a fluency at that point.
And you had kind of a different experience in grammar school because you were a transracial adoption. So you're Puerto Rican and Black, but your family was what?
My family is Eastern European Orthodox Jewish in nature, and grammar school was interesting for me, not necessarily because of the racial component. Ironically, and I would say fortuitously, I did not experience any racial issues in my grammar school. The only issue I had, I would say, primarily stemmed from the religious aspect because I couldn't stay over at anybody's house. I couldn't eat at anybody else's house due to dietary and, cultural religious restrictions. So that made it difficult because I stopped being invited to things because people knew I couldn't accept. So that was difficult. But in the sense of racial issues, I didn't have any. I was able to speak with the Spanish teachers and such. That was a little bit of a treat, but other than that, it was not a bad experience.
How did things change as you progressed through school? The environment, being able to connect with people, and academics.
I would say, due to the person who helped me learn and become fluent in English, she had a remarkable influence on my studying ability because before her, I was having a difficult time because I couldn't understand anything. And so after her, since I was able to grasp English in a much more complete fashion, I was able to excel exceedingly in all of my classes from that. I would beat everybody in SRA, which I guess for the current generation, that's student reading aptitude. And they would give you like little stars, and mine would be across the classroom, like way, way ahead of everybody else. And I was also in an advanced reading and spelling class and that type of thing. So I would say that all of her assistance really prefaced my academic journey. And so when I transitioned to high school, I was able to be in superior honors advanced placement classes. The difficulty came in high school because where I lived and also in my grammar school, there weren't other persons of other races and cultures. And so when I hit high school, that was when I would say my eyes open, so to speak. And
Okay.
I was around a lot of Black, Mexican, Latino people. And that's when the difficulty started with, unfortunately, meeting people of my same color.
How so?
Unfortunately, because I think of two things, oh no, probably three. One, my family background. I was adopted in into a white European Jewish family. And then secondly, my culture was different. I was not brought up in the African American culture, so I wasn't aware of many of the cultural things, I guess, that most people of color would have been aware of. And that tended to cause friction. And then when they found out I spoke Spanish, that was also another layer of alienation because they would say, you know, why do you speak that blankety blank blank blank? And I would say, well, that blankety blank blank is my first language. And so that was an issue. And the fact that I was excelling academically was also an issue. For some reason, people seemed to be threatened by that, which I couldn't understand. And the fact that I speak the way I speak, they also would tell me, well, you don't have to speak like that all the time. And I was like, unfortunately, this is the way I speak. I don't know how to speak any other way. I wasn't aware that I should be speaking another way.
Even though they were criticizing you and really ridiculing you for excelling in school, did you ever feel like it was kind of an escape from everything that was kind of going on around you? I know that you have a love of reading and learning and books. Was that a gateway for you at all?
I would say that was a gateway for me, but from my early childhood, from I think because after learning English, it opened such new worlds for me that I would constantly have my head in a book to the point where my siblings would laugh at me at the time because we would do chores on the weekends. They would laugh at me because I'd have one hand dusting the furniture and the other hand would have a book in it. And it would take me all day to do something that would take them perhaps an hour. And they would always make fun of me for that. But to me, reading was like my doorway into another world. So it wasn't an escape per se, but it was just somewhere where I always wanted to be. And I think that in turn influenced my academic progress. But I think if somebody didn't truly understand me, they wouldn't understand that.
Tell me about how you went from high school to college. You were an honor student, and that is part of how you were able to make your way to college, but you had sort of an not an unusual way to get there, but you had some real challenges to overcome
I
to
really
get to
did.
university.
I really did. Unfortunately, with my cultural upbringing, the women in these families are not supposed to obtain higher education. At their education should stop at graduation for high school, and then their responsibility is to get married and have children and raise those children and support the husband in his academic pursuits. But unfortunately, again, for the lady who instilled in me the love of reading, once I could do it, I was not satisfied. And once I learned that I was actually good in class, and I was also an advanced placement student and was able to take the tests for that so that I could opt out of a lot of the general requirements for university. And so what I did is I applied to universities behind my parents' back. And then I applied for scholarships as well because I knew that this was probably the only way that I would be able to go. Sort of like, what did they say? It's easier to ask forgiveness than ask permission. That was truly
Yes,
act in my
yes.
case. So basically, what happened, probably a little sooner than I anticipated, is that my mother beat me to the mailbox one day and opened an acceptance letter from one of the universities. And that's when the doo doo hit the fan.
How did she react? How did both your parents react?
They had expressed extreme disappointment because they felt that it was a betrayal of sorts to apply to universities behind their back, that I didn't, I wasn't upfront with them. But at the same time, had I been upfront with them, it was something they would not have allowed. So it was sort of like a catch-22 situation. So I try to say that respectfully, of course, because in that type of culture as well, children weren't really allowed to disagree with their parents. And so luckily, I had secured scholarships through being an Illinois State finalist as well as a National Merit finalist. So I was able to get merit-based scholarships to go to school. And I think that was the only reason I was allowed to, because had I had to request loans and such through my parents or something like that, they would have vehemently denied that and thus blocked my academic progress. And so finally, my father gave in, and then he said the only way I would be allowed to go is if I agreed to live in an all-women's dorm. My mother disagreed and sort of used the wall of silence with me.
Back then, were there really other options than all women's dorms for a young woman?
Yes, most of the dorms were actually co-ed, so you would have different floors, like one floor would be men, one floor would be women, and the doors would be locked, but you would still have mixing in the common rooms. So like the kitchens, the TV
Okay,
rooms, that type
okay,
of thing. And of course,
okay.
there's no adult supervision. So that was something that my parents were quite against.
I gotcha. Okay, so how did it feel to break through all of those things? Like, what was the first day of school like? Did it all hit you? Like, when did all of this just come together for you?
When I was dropped off at the university, because that is what my parents did do for me, they drove me down to the university, and just thinking of being in a 5, 6 hour car drive with parents who were disapproving. It felt like a
Oof.
12-hour drive.
Oh
Um,
man.
but the moment you're dropped off, with your suitcases and all the other stuff, and you realize that this is the first time that you have been on your own in 17 years, it was very overwhelming. I think I just sat in a corner and cried because
Oh man.
whether it's good or bad, you're still surrounded by family. And so
Mm.
this is the first time that I realized that I had gone out on a limb for something I wanted, but it came with a price. I was basically cut off. So I knew from this point on, I had to fend for myself.
Is that
And
how
that
it
was
stayed?
overwhelming. Yes, it did. I'll give you a quick example. There was an award ceremony for honor students. I was on the dean's list, and one of my parents drove down, and it was a ceremony for like 2 or 3 hours. There was a dinner and that type of thing. And I had
Mm.
asked my parent if this parent could stay, but they said they couldn't because the other parent was still in the car. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, this person has been in the car for 3 hours? Not in addition to the drive down. And I was thinking, why didn't this person come into my award ceremony? I thought that was very hurtful. And then when I went out to the car, the person did not speak with me, acknowledge me, look at me, anything. And so that was very hurtful. It felt like all the academic progress I had made was for naught. But then it made me more determined to succeed even more so.
So you graduated, went on to travel, graduate studies. Where did you end up in life?
Well, it's sort of a hodgepodge. I did graduate. I have to say, I was very happy because even though the parents weren't participating, some of my siblings came down for the graduation, which meant a lot to me. After that, I did go study overseas, and that really opened my eyes. Think of like a country person, the country mouse going to the city. And that's really how it was. And I just realized it was such a wide world out there, and I wanted to explore more. And through that, I studied in various subjects and topics, and currently I am a nurse.
What is the value of education to you, and how do you think that maybe is different or more valuable or less valuable as a Black woman and as a Latina?
I think education is the key to succeed. Many people will say, oh, education is not worth it. Look at the price you have to pay. Look at the, price of education. Look at how, the disparity is seen even more so in school where wealthy students have an edge as opposed to others. But to me, for people who don't necessarily start from the same starting line, I think education is a necessary component in order to move forward in life. Because without that, one will perpetually stay behind the starting line and we'll just have to watch as everyone moves off. And for that, even though I wasn't accepted by Black students at the university and I was accepted by the Latino students, I still tried to make sure that I gave back to both sides of my heritage. So there was a program, I don't know if there still exists, but it was called a transitional program. And basically during the summer, there's a select number of students that would be brought into the university. And if they passed the summer program, they would be provisionally admitted to the university. And they would have 2 years where they would have to go with additional tutoring and such like that. And normally these were students from educationally disadvantaged, sometimes culturally disadvantaged backgrounds. And so through that, I felt that I should try and give back to help others succeed where I succeeded. And on the Latino side, I would do that as well. There was something called a MedPep program where Spanish speaking students and their parents, many first generation immigrants, would be encouraged to apply to universities and move out of their world. And because in the Latino world, the women are sort of relegated to the background and the men dominate, just like in many cultures, the Jewish culture, the Black culture. And so it was sort of like an impetus to try and not just get men, but also women in there. And so I've always felt that education was a key to make any change because what is one thing that people will always ask you in a job? Oh, where did you go to school? That may sound like a conversation starter, but it's actually a probe for information as well. Because if you're not from an advanced education, people tend to dismiss you. So to me, at least getting that first step is essential.
So, last question. How do you define an educated person? We've talked about the value of education. What does it mean to be an educated person?
To me, education is not necessarily defined by an institution because a person to me can be well learned by self-education if they're willing to read, to learn, to open their mind to other things. People can be educated by the world and have the same level of education as somebody with a college or university conferred degree. I mean, look at some of the biggest billionaires that we have in the world. Many of them didn't go to college, or if they started in college, they dropped out. So to me, university education isn't the begin all, the end all of all education. It's just the need to educate oneself with the information that's out there. And of course, to be able to differentiate what is mass, how would you say, mass information release, which is unfortunately can be disarming because with the social media fueled information load out there, people
Like
are
overload?
overload, I should say. Yes, that's a better term. People tend to be influenced by that and don't necessarily read for themselves. They'll say, oh, well, this person is important, so they say that this and this, so I'll follow them, kind of thing, instead of educating themselves on factual things that have been verified and confirmed as opposed to just the media mill. So I think somebody can be educated whether or not it's a formal education, but as long as the information that they have is tried and true.
Yeah, and that they're trying to evaluate it and think for themselves.
Correct. I have learned actually more history being out of the university and watching movies and such than I have from being in the university because university education, history and such, that's all written by the victor. So when you want to read beyond and dig, you have to sometimes find things that are not university conferred and learn that way as well.
Okay, that's it.
Well, thank you very much.